So most phones still don't have eye tracking, at least as far as we know. Imagine if they give you scrolling through eyes as a feature. Now you don't even have to touch it. You have to look. As you look down, the scroll goes up automatically. You don't have to click on it, just blink on it, or just keep your eyes paused on a particular point and it just selects itself. What if the screen becomes that intuitive that you don't need your hands at all? There is something called MR spectroscopy and MR tractography. Now, these are two new techniques. You can see the fibers of the brain. And if you haven't seen it, guys, you should check it out. One of the most beautiful images that you can see. All the fibers of the brain in different colors. Your brain looks so gorgeous. That's actually my desktop wallpaper.
Dr. Sid Warrior returns on the show to speak to engineer Ranveer Allahbadia. That was the beauty of this particular podcast. While we speak about crypto and Web3 and the metaverse, there's a lot of biotech that's going to become a huge and important reality for all of us. This is a conversation between a doctor and an engineer discussing everything from Neuralink to stem cells to nanobots, little tiny robots that will infiltrate our bloodstream and help our bodies basically never die. The human race is at the brink of a huge biotech revolution. It's very important for all of us to know about what the near future holds. So keeping that in mind, this is a fantastic, slightly technical, but perspective enriching episode with Dr. Sid Warrior. If you're sitting outside of India, our job on TRS is to bring you the best perspectives and experiences and minds that India has to offer to the world. So to keep in touch with TRS, make sure you follow us on Spotify. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world because we're a Spotify exclusive. If you enjoyed this episode with Sid Warrior, actually, you know what? I'll say that in the outro because I know you're going to enjoy it. Very technical. Biology meets physics. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Dr. Sid Warrior, another epic podcast with you. We got to talk about the dangers of future tech, the fears that a lot of people have when it comes to the metaverse, or after seeing a lot of Black Mirror episodes. You're a Black Mirror fan, I'm a Black Mirror fan, so is Harari. And Harari said about Black Mirror that it's weird how, I don't know how he talks, but you know what I mean? He said it's weird that Black Mirror is showing these things because they are very close to what's happening in reality. These Black Mirror style technologies are actually going to come up very soon. We've had a lot of entrepreneurs on the show speak about the metaverse and technology. We've had some kind of coders speak about it. We've never had a doctor speak about these things. And I also feel that a huge part of future tech that's near us is this machine body interface kind of tech. Where earlier we used to look at computer screens and do everything you want on a computer. Then the computer screen came closer to us in our phones, and now the computer screen gradually will make its way into our bodies. What's up? Where do we even begin?
It's a brave new world.
As a doctor, firstly, do you agree that all this is happening?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. Do you know why Black Mirror is named what it is? So we are spending all day looking at the screen, and when you turn off the screen, you're looking at yourself, and then that screen cracks. So it's your own reality cracking. It's a crazy concept. So when I saw Black Mirror for the first time, I realized that this is a horror show, actually. And the reason why it's a horror show is because earlier horror stories used to be about ghosts, scary witches, ghosts, bhoot, pret, which at a time people believed was possible, right? So all good horror stories need to have that possibility of truth. Today, Conjuring will not be a horror story because it is fictional. We know that is not happening. Black Mirror is possible. Black Mirror can happen. Today, we believe that Black Mirror can happen. And it is scary. So 2022 horror story is Black Mirror.
Let's kind of make this an everyday example. People talk about data being the new oil. Everyone knows that the big companies in the world have access to a lot of our data, probably know about our minds better than we do.
Yeah.
If you don't know about this concept, please watch Social Dilemma on Netflix. I would also like to say that there's an episode of Black Mirror where the main character is in a world where she's rating everyone she meets and she's rating all the experiences she has and people are rating her back. Therefore, she's forced to be nice. But then when the human element kicks in and emotions kick in and she flips out somewhere, people start negatively rating her. And her whole life is built around ratings. And therefore, her self-image, the image of herself in her mind also starts slipping off. Now, we think that's the future, but that's happening in two places already. One, the social media you use, and two, the taxi drivers that you rate. They also rate you back.
Correct.
How was this rider? You think you're just giving them 5 stars? They're also giving you 5 stars or 3 stars.
It's starting.
And the algorithm will assign you a correct driver or a wrong driver based on your rating.
Right.
And this is one business, but every business that you interact with gradually is going to do this.
What is dystopian is that in that episode, she may or may not get a house loan depending on how others rate you. So already banks are doing that based on your spending capital and your the ability for you to pay off your past credit card loans. You get a score. A CIBIL score is that. The better your score, the better your loans. But now we're talking of social capital. Now, even if today all your friends hate you, your bank will still give you money if there is enough evidence that you will pay it off. Suppose we enter a society where your bank will not give you money because nobody trusts you. Your friends don't trust you, and they know that because they can see your friends' rating of you. I had read this article about how China was running this experiment where on an app you can rate and you can inform the government of crimes that you see in your neighborhood. Essentially, you rat out your neighbors. So if they have parked the car wrong, or if they have thrown out the trash in a wrong way, if you point it out, you get points. So it's kind of like social policing where you encourage everybody to police each other. It is dystopian. It is already happening. And the more we are connected to each other, the more these things can happen.
Okay. Because you're a neurologist, let's talk specifically about the brain. Let's begin with, say, Neuralink. I think there's one more company called Synchron, which has achieved a lot of progress in this computer-brain interface. Why don't you explain what these things are to someone who's never heard these words, Neuralink and Synchron?
Sure.
And then why don't you explain the possibilities?
All right. The best way to understand the purpose of Neuralink is to think about the speed of data transfer. Okay. So you and I are talking. I can hear you. My brain is processing it. My brain is telling my mouth and my lips and my tongue to speak words, and you can hear it. So we are communicating at a rate of, say, 5 words per second, 2 words per second, right? Now, if I have to tell some other friend what you have told me, I have to physically go and tell them. This is 5,000 years ago. Then you increase the rate of communication by creating a postal network. Now I can write a letter and send it across. Then you come up with telephones. Now it's even faster. Rate of communication is faster. Then you come up with emails. Then you come up with Wi-Fi. So the rate of communication between all of us is increasing better and better. Now I have to interact with a mobile. How quickly can I get a message to you depends on how quickly I can type. So that is the rate of communication. If I can type 50 words in a minute, that is the rate of communication. What if I can type as quickly as I can speak? That is the next step, voice detection. What if I can type as quickly as I can think? So that is where brain-machine interfacing comes in. We are already living in a brain-machine interface, except that right now the interface, what is interface? It is the barrier between two things. So right now the interface between me and my mobile is my thumb. How quickly my thumb moves is how quickly I can interact with the machine. But if there is a chip in my brain which can read my thoughts theoretically, and I can directly think out words that can get typed, so that the interface becomes my thinking. So how quickly can I think will decide how quickly I can type. Also, how quickly I can move things. So right now, if I have to start a car, The interface is that I have to move my arm and turn the ignition. But what if there is a link directly from my brain to the car engine? That means that I don't need a key. I don't need that key ignition, none of that. It's a direct interface. So brain-machine interfacing essentially means connecting your brain to all the other equipment around you, which right now it is already connected, except it is connected through your arms and physical movement. So you are sidestepping that.
Okay. Engineering question. Engineering student, medical student. Okay. Brain machine interface. But the question to you
Every
is that
parent's dream.
Oh man, if only you weren't a guy.
Two content creators talking about how we made our parents proud. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you study computers at a very basic level, terms of the softwares we use are created using code. They're coded. What are the codes created with? What is the building block of code? Or what is the building block of a computer? The building block of a computer is something called a microchip or a microprocessor. We had a subject called mu-P, mu-C. Microchips and microprocessors.
Right.
All right. The basic logic of that is that everything inside a computer is built up of zeros and ones.
Yeah, the binary.
Yeah, the binary. So if you type an A, the computer doesn't read it as an A.
Right.
The language that the computer speaks is only 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So it'll code the A as a combination of zeros and ones. And that's the basic logic of binary. A B is another combination. A C is another combination.
Right.
Numerals, symbols, they all have their own combinations.
Right.
And then you put letters together, you get words.
Yeah.
You put words together, you get sentences. Sentences are basically the building blocks of a code.
Right.
Okay, but when you boil down to its basic, it's zeros and ones.
Yeah.
If you boil that down even further, it means there's a lot of circuits inside a computer.
Yeah.
And every time it reads a 1, it fires an electrical volt.
Right.
And every time it reads 0, it doesn't.
Right.
Or the other way. But my point is, I'm asking you about the biological version of this. Does your brain work in the same way? Like, does it understand binary only? Is that the logic behind them creating brain-machine interfaces?
No. So brain-machine interfaces is to directly map which areas of the brain are firing.
Okay.
So we are not going into the molecular level yet. We don't have the technology to do that. At the molecular level, it is very similar, except that it's more like a qubit, not a bit, where it's not a binary. So there is a open state, a closed state, and a semi-open state for receptors. It's it's too deep.
So
But
instead of a binary, there's a trinary or whatever.
sort of something like that. So when two neurons are talking to each other, there are receptors that can let sodium ions in, calcium ions in, and that is what determines whether that neuron will fire or not. Now, you can either have a closed state, so that means the neuron will not fire, an open state where it is going to fire, or a semi-open state where it may fire depending on all the other variables.
Wow.
So it's a much more complex system than just ones and zeros.
My question is Synchron, this company that we read about, they were able to get a paralyzed man to write a sentence using just his thoughts.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Like, I understand how it happened on the computer side, but what happened on the biology side?
So when I'll take the example of the monkey, it's easier to understand. When Neuralink was able to train a monkey to play a video game with just his thoughts. So initially what the company did was, they gave a monkey a remote. Okay. And with the remote, he has to move a block around a screen. And he has to bounce a ball around the screen. So every time the ball would hit the block, the monkey would be able to get a spurt of strawberry or like a sweet liquid. So that's a reward mechanism, right? So now the monkey knows that, okay, I have to keep on doing this in order to keep getting that dopamine kick. But without that monkey being aware, the computer was detecting every time he would move his hand to the right, which area would fire, move to the left, which area would fire, up, which area would fire, down, which area would fire. And the company was just reading all of that and correlating with the actual hand movement. Once it has figured that out, it disconnected the remote from the screen and directly connected the brain to the screen. The monkey didn't know that. The monkey is still moving the remote. But now, every time that particular area will fire, the screen will automatically move. And the monkey still thinks that I am moving it with my remote. So every time you want to execute a particular action, like for example, if I want to move my index finger, a separate area of my brain is firing. If I want to move my little finger, a separate area is firing. So if I can map that onto a code, I don't need my hand, right? So if I'm pressing the remote, the only reason I have to press the remote is because there is no way for my brain to directly press the remote. But if I can connect my brain to this, it is direct. Same for words. Same for language. Although language is more complex than just moving a particular finger, but it is still possible that if you have to come up with certain words, you can map your brain accordingly. What is more easy is, suppose if I have 10 words in front of me, I can move my eyes to a particular point and that can pick up the word. That is what Stephen Hawking did. He experimented with multiple things. So you're able to pick up words with your eyes. That is another way of brain-machine interfacing.
What about dreams? I actually read about this research that's being done to showcase dreams visually. So if you're dreaming, they are trying to work on technologies which will actually be able to showcase sort of what the dream looks like.
As far as I know, it's not been successful yet. Okay. Because there is actually not a big screen that is playing in your brain and you can just output it onto a real world screen. It's just neural networks firing together, coming up with an image and then it disintegrating. But you can map which areas are getting fired. And if you are successful enough and if you go down deep enough, you can map which areas represent which memories. As far as I know, so far they have not been successful in doing that. But I have no doubt that it will happen.
So from all this, what I gather is that on the biology side, when they're trying to get the brain part of the computer brain interface or the machine brain interface, it's basically a device, a machine that maps out your entire brain with all its details. And then takes out parts to construct something on the computer side.
Yes.
Okay.
It tries to decode what this part firing means. Now, the complicated part is that the same part can fire for multiple reasons. Like, for example, if I'm walking and certain parts of my brain are firing, those same parts could also fire if I'm listening to, say, a Michael Jackson song. So now if that part fires, what will the computer interpret it as? So it has to understand the complexity. It has to understand the context of a particular pattern of network firing, which is why the challenge is there.
Okay, deeper question. If I move my left hand and if you move your left hand, is this same part of both our brains firing, or is it different for me and different for you?
It'll be very, very similar. So if you're moving your left arm, the right motor cortex is moving. Same for me.
Okay.
So that much homogeneity is there. Like both of our brains will be wired that similarly, which is why movement is probably the easiest one to monitor initially. Language is more difficult. Memories, emotions are even more difficult.
So I think what Elon Musk said on a Joe Rogan Experience podcast was that the main purpose of Neuralink initially is to fix all the neurological problems that we find in the brain. You're a neurologist. It's your job to do this. Now, how do you, feel about a technology like that coming in and maybe, I won't say taking away your job, but sort of affecting your profession? And second, is that actually possible, speaking as a neurologist?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not taking away my profession. There's already devices that do this. There's something called as deep brain stimulation. So if a part of your brain isn't working as well, for example, in Parkinson's, you've heard of Parkinson's, a part of the brain where dopamine is supposed to be acting, that part disintegrates or doesn't work as well. So we put in a stimulator, like a battery operated stimulator, and that will give electric impulses to that area to stimulate it.
Like surgically you'll put it?
Surgically you put it into the brain. So that is called deep brain stimulation. So it is like battery charging a car. You kickstart a car if it's not working. So that's how deep brain stimulation works. It's already happening, and it is part of the treatment options that we offer to Parkinson's patients जिनमें दवाई का फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है, or if who have become tolerant to medicines, whose disease has advanced so much. There are other surgical solutions, like for example, अगर किसी को seizure हो रहा है, you have an epilepsy disorder. Epilepsy is when there is uncontrolled electrical activity. So you can put in an implant that can cancel out a seizure. So if there's electrical activity coming from here, you cancel it out so that the seizure stops spreading. That is also one of the ways in which you can treat an epilepsy patient.
Got it. In terms of, and there's so many more questions I have about biohacking, the genome project, all that shit we're going to get into. But for now, I want to actually just talk to the doctor in you. When we talk about things like brain surgery, say just for the medical profession, it's the most difficult field to get into, anything related to the brain? Neurosurgeon?
No, so neurosurgery is definitely one of the most complex fields to become. It's not about difficulty. It's a cardiac surgeon, it's undergoing training that is as intensive and doing procedures that are as complex. It is the difficulty in getting the post is not what the conversation is about. The complexity of what they're doing, definitely.
As a surgeon, because we understand the heart a lot more than we understand the brain. Okay, so a neurosurgeon, like a brain surgeon.
A brain surgeon, what a brain surgeon does is definitely one of the most complex procedures in medical science.
Why?
Because of this, because our understanding of the brain is still evolving. We are still learning how different parts of the brain communicate with each other. We're still learning how one part of the brain will affect a patient's health overall. So because of that, I believe it is challenging. And also because we are still understanding how neuroplasticity works. So how much of a brain can we remove that is problematic and still give the patient a quality of life that is good? These are things that we are still learning about.
Okay. For people who are listening into Dr. Sid Warrior on the show for the first time, neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to build up further parts of itself or break down old parts of itself over the course of your life. Yeah. It's possible for you through habit formation and good sleep. That's
thank you. This is why I need someone like Ranveer to explain things, because I sometimes get carried away.
No, fair. I also think by this point, if people haven't checked out the other episodes with you it's a crime. Yeah. It's a crime. Please go check it out. But we'll come back to biohacking.
Yeah.
So speaking about biohacking, I feel like people talk about crypto, Web3, metaverse, and we'll get there as well. What people don't talk about as an upcoming modern day technology is all the advancements we're seeing in biohacking. Two questions. Firstly, what is biohacking? Secondly, other than Neuralink, what are some things that are coming up? And I'm talking about the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. The most exciting things that are coming up is ways in which you can get feedback from your body. So think about it.
Explain what biohacking is first.
Okay. There are two ways to look at biohacking. One is some techniques that you use to improve your own efficiency.
Of your body.
Of your body. So what are some breathing exercises? What are some daily meditation exercises? What are some physical exercises that you can do? What are things that you can eat? What are things that you can, what are ways in which you can sleep better? All of these are ways of biohacking your body. The other way of biohacking is through technology. So what kind of music are you listening to? Is there any evidence for binaural beats? Is there any evidence for the correct or a particular kind of lighting in your house, a particular kind of shades of curtains in your house? All of these, what are the loops that they set up that affect your behavior? They're all different ways in which you can think of biohacking.
So sort of you get an insight into how your personal unique brain is reacting to different real world scenarios or things you put inside your body or near your body.
Manipulating your neurobiological reactions.
Okay. Like one example is that patch that people have started putting, those patches which give you feedback on your glucose levels. That's
Yes.
one sort of biohacking because you're getting feedback on your glucose
So
levels.
the word for that would be biofeedback.
Okay.
So there is a difference. Biofeedback is incredibly useful. We have biofeedback inbuilt in us. At any given point of time, your brain is aware of your body temperature, which is a biofeedback. Your brain is aware of where your legs are, which is biofeedback. How full your stomach is, how full your bladder is. Are you sexually turned on? Are you sexually turned off? Is your stomach paining? Is there any pain anywhere in your body? This is all biofeedback. Your brain needs constant information about your body. What we are doing through technology is adding another level of biofeedback. So now we have a glucometer, for example. Now I am consciously aware, not just subconsciously. My subconscious brain is already aware of my glucose levels. But am I consciously aware of my glucose levels? That adds another level. Am I consciously aware of my heartbeat? Through my Apple Watch, I will be able to know that. My oxygen level, my weight. So all of these things are ways of getting biofeedback. The more feedback you get, the more your conscious decision making can change.
As in your daily life choices.
Yeah, correct, exactly. So people who are doing 24-hour glucose monitoring have found that they can now see when their glucose levels go above 110, 120. And then when they reach out for that cake, they will not eat it. Because now they don't want it to cross 125 because that is a target that they've set for themselves. It can also have an opposite effect because I have had patients with diabetes whose sugars were not very well controlled, 200, 220. They're doing their best. They're dieting, they're taking their medicines, they're exercising. But even then, initially the sugar levels can still fluctuate. Now, normally what would happen is they would check their blood sugar after 15 days, which means their biofeedback would come every 15 days. And they know कि अच्छा ठीक है 10 point कम हो गया, 10 point कम हो गया. But with 24-hour glucose monitoring, every single rise is documented. Now their full attention is on that app. कि देखो मैंने इतना खा लिया और इतना बढ़ गया. And that gives them anxiety. So too much feedback is also a problem. And this is a very interesting phenomenon that we have noticed.
Black Mirror.
There we go. Full circle.
Wow. Okay. What else? What other cool shit is around the corner? Other than just feedback.
I recently did a workshop on neuromarketing.
Okay. Which is what?
So traditional marketing. The purpose of traditional marketing is that if I'm selling something to you, I need to know what was your experience. I need to know that next time when you go out, how likely you are to buy my product, how likely you are to recommend it to other people. And if I sell something completely different, how likely it is that you might like that one, right? The only way that I can know that is by asking you. There's no other way I can know that. So I will ask you. This is called traditional, taking a questionnaire, taking group forums, taking random phone calls, just, asking people, hey, listen, we have come up with a new product. What is your take on this? Do you like this? What neuromarketing does is A, try to understand consumer behavior. Why is it that they've picked one thing above another? And B, predict consumer behavior. How likely is it that they will buy it? Through biofeedback. So all the things that a consumer's body is telling them, if the company can know in some way, it gives them valuable information. So for example, if the next time you open your phone and you open Amazon, you're scrolling, right? In every page, there will be 3, 4, 5 products. How many of them will you consciously register? 1, maybe nothing. You've scrolled past it. Sometimes you may register something, but you didn't really pause there. You might not even know that you've registered it. But suppose if the camera is tracking your eye, the camera has noticed that you have paused on this 0.23 seconds more than other things. Now, why did you do that? There is a reason. Your brain, for some reason, values that thing more. Maybe you like it, maybe you hate it. Either way, you can pause on that. But it is information about you. Next time, we will show you more of that product. Let's see how it goes. If you end up buying it, that means that you like that. show it more.
This could be a reason that Netflix thumbnails are different for everyone.
Absolutely.
You think they're using neuromarketing?
Even, of course they are, but the level of feedback isn't that advanced yet. So most phones still don't have eye tracking, at least as far as we know. The only thing that they have is the speed of scrolling and where your fingers are going. But the next big thing that is going to happen is eye tracking is going to become universal. This is something that I believe in.
Okay.
And probably just like how fingerprints became universal, Face ID became universal, it's going to be a technological advantage that is going to be pitched to us. This is my prediction that imagine if they give you scrolling through eyes as a feature. Now you don't even have to touch it. You have to look. As you look down, the scroll goes up automatically. You don't have to click on it, just blink on it or just keep your eyes paused on a particular point and it just selects itself. What if the screen becomes that intuitive that you don't need your hands at all? So you will give permission to the phone to track your eyes.
Everything that you're saying about technology, I'm trying to see the engineering side of it, which is actually, we've done so many conversations, but this is the first time a biotech conversation is happening. And that's what I'm really enjoying. This is a very unique one.
Yeah.
What I will say is mathematics is the language of the universe. Everything we see around us is mathematics. There's numbers all around us. There's numbers even in deep biology, in what you do. Because biology in its core is chemistry, which is physics, which is mathematics.
Of course.
So keeping that in mind, and also from some of the books I've read about futurism, etc., there's a concept of big data. And everything that you have said based on Neuralink plus Neuro-marketing plus, I think, what was the other one we spoke about?
The eye tracker, synchronous.
You name it, biofeedback. It's all data based.
Of course,
And that's the key word here, that can you get biological data of a human being? And even when you say moving your eye down, it's by how many centimeters has the person, like, can you quantify it? Cameras will get that advanced. I'll be able to quantify in using trigonometry, like, what you're staring at the screen. This is where trigonometry is used in life. Anyway, kidding. But coming back to the point, it's all data based. The more data you're able to get about the analog world or the biological world, the better your biotech becomes. Keeping that in mind, people keep talking about big data as a massive part of biotech going forward. Now, what big data basically means is big data. Like a huge, infinitely huge number of data points. So a kind of tangible way to understand that is hypothetical scenario. 50 years into the future, we have something like nanobots, okay, which are very tiny microscopic robots that you inject into your skin. Now they will be able to get data about your body, how much zinc is present in your bloodstream, how much iron is there, how much vitamin A do you have. They can even tell when the first cancer cell will be created. And before that cancer blows up into something, they'll actually be able to go then shoot that cancer cell down. Now this is the power of the future of big data. Keeping that in mind, do you have anything to add about big data?
I love what you said about number of data points, because that is exactly how marketing has evolved. When 50 years ago, when you look at a particular population, you would say that there are, say for example, 1,000 men, 900 women of this much age group, and roughly these many people watch cricket, these many people watch football. That's it. Like, that's what you know. Now, based on this, you have to decide if you have a soap brand, how do you sell it to and who do you sell it to? So this is all the data you have. As opposed to that, today, you could technically say that in this particular building, there are these many people who have paused at or who have bought soaps that are very similar to your competition or very similar to your brand in the last 1 month. Now that is data that they have today. In 10 years, they could have data about each individual person and the percentage likelihood of them buying your product. So as the number of data points keep increasing, the predictability of a human being keeps increasing. I remember we spoke about seeing the future. And this is exactly what it is. The more data points you have and the more your processing power is, the more you can see the future.
Yeah. Collect data from the past, apply it in the present,
See the
you'll
future.
predict a likely future.
Correct.
I want to know about nanobots actually. Is that going to happen according to you? Because they say that computers are constantly getting smaller.
Yeah.
Effectively, a nanobot is a very, very tiny computer.
I think technologically it is inevitable. Whether it gets used practically depends on multiple variables, depends on the ethical concerns, depends on the fear concerns. People might have trouble accepting
A
injecting.
robot.
Yeah, correct. So there needs to be like a social shift in how we perceive robots, in how we perceive these kind of gadgets. Because I believe when Google Glass had come out with their glasses, people felt a little strange to put a computer so close to their face. But then they became comfortable with Apple Watch, having something on their wrist all the time, which is a mobile computing device. So would you be comfortable having a computer injected into your blood? Today, probably not. But if there's a social shift, then probably yes. So before that happens, I believe a lot of other things have to happen. For example, computerized lenses is what is more likely to happen first, where everything you see will literally be through the lens of a computer. So there's augmented reality on top of everything. So when I see you, if I want to, I can just, and if you're a Facebook friend of mine, then I can see your name, your age, your gender, all of that stuff on the side. I can have information about you. And I can add you as a friend right there from my eyes. So these are things that I think would happen before nanobots in your blood.
Okay, fair. Let's talk about something that's going on right now. While we're talking about biotech, would you count stem cells as biotech? And what are stem cells?
Stem cells are bio. They're more bio than tech. So stem cells are cells in your body that have not differentiated into a particular organ.
As in they can become anything.
They can become anything.
So, okay, hold on. To explain this better, your brain has a particular kind of cell, your eyes have a particular kind of cell,
Correct.
your lips have a particular kind of cell, your bones have a particular kind of cell.
Think about it all the way back when you start off as a sperm and an egg, and they come together and they form a zygote, and that zygote will go and implant into a uterus. Now that zygote will eventually become a full human baby. So essentially everything about you has come from that cell. So that cell is capable of differentiating into a heart, into a lung, into a brain, into a kidney, whatever. So at different stages in that journey from a cell to a baby, there are different types of cells that you can pick up. And some of those cells remain like that, even in an adult form.
Okay.
So deep inside your bones, you have cells that can become any of your blood cells. It could become a white blood cell. It could become a red blood cell. Similarly, in your brain, there are areas which can become a neuron, but it hasn't become a neuron yet.
Okay, wow, shit.
Right? So there are stem cells that are still there in your body, which you can pick up. And so this is great for, different types of treatments.
I didn't know that these cells are present in adult bodies as well. I was under the assumption for some reason that it's something to do with umbilical cords of babies.
That is one way to do it, but there are stem cells present in adult humans also.
Does it mean that umbilical cords contain a lot of stem cells?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we're saying that stem cell research is happening all over the world, are they trying to make stem cells in labs? Is that the logic?
They are also trying to do that. They are also trying to see if they can grow organs from other animals in vitro, that is in a lab, and then try to transplant that into a human being. So these are all different kinds of research. Stem cell therapy is so promising because it opens the door to creating organs from scratch, quite literally. So if you can do that, the possibility of help is huge. And even in cancer treatment, there is a lot of potential for stem cell, because in a way, cancer cells divide like stem cells, because they divide and they grow and they grow and they grow. So when you understand stem cells a lot, you actually have insight into cancer as well.
Didn't they just come up with some drug that is very promising in cancer treatment?
So, but it was a very small group though. It was just 12 people.
Okay.
So I think there was a warning in the study as well that, until they do a much bigger study, you can't be too celebratory, but definitely a huge news.
Again, I'm asking the doctor in you, are there other angles like this whole stem cell research angle which interest you a lot?
So neurogenesis is a very interesting one, because earlier we used to believe that a baby once born, brain cells don't grow. I don't know if you've heard of this thing.
Yeah.
We are born with all the neurons that we will ever have, and if a neuron dies, it dies. But that's not true. Now we know that there are areas in the brain, especially around the nose and deep in the hippocampus. There are areas where new brain cells can grow. And there are certain things that we can do to make them grow even more. Exercise being one of them, interestingly, where you can actually create new neurons. So that is a very interesting field of research.
So exercise technically makes you smarter.
It does.
Wow.
Quite literally.
Possibly even meditation.
Quite literally it does, yeah.
Okay, fair. And there's more research being done about these dormant neurons. That's what.
Yes.
How do you even do research about it? You take like dead people's brains or something?
No, these are all animal studies. Most of what we know about human brains comes from animal and monkey studies.
Wow.
Ironically. So I remember talking to a researcher about this, that it is possible that the human brain is completely different
than an animal's.
Yeah. I mean, from all the things that we say, it is very possible that the human brain is different, because most of what we know about the human brain comes from animal studies. And we are assuming that it gets carried forward into human beings as well.
What will it take to do studies on human brains instead?
That's the biggest challenge, right? So now, until very, very recently, we didn't have imaging techniques. How do I know what's in your head? The only way was to cut open your brain and take it out and study it, which is not fair for you. But now we have things like MRI, and that the strength of the MRI is getting better and better. So now with an MRI machine, I can see very, very clear parts of your brain. There is a 1 Tesla MRI, the 3 Tesla MRI. So that's the strength of the MRI. Now they've come up with 7 Tesla MRI. It is so powerful that you can almost see the cells, each individual neuron. So they are coming up with something called radiopathology. So pathology is when you cut open a tissue, take it out, put it under a microscope and look at the cells. The only way to look at the cells was to do that. But imagine if a camera or an MRI is so powerful that you don't need to cut it open. Just through that MRI machine, you can look at a brain and look at the cells of the brain. Now suddenly the whole brain appears different. So I've seen images of a 7 Tesla MRI and it looks nothing like a 3 Tesla MRI. So our relationship with the brain is going to change as technology changes.
And therefore, with this speed of technology changing, maybe our speed of learning about the brain will also
100%. There is something called MR spectroscopy and MR tractography. Now, these are two new techniques. You can see the fibers of the brain. And if you haven't seen it, guys, you should check it out. Just Google MR tractography. It is one of the most beautiful images that you can see. All the fibers of the brain in different colors. Your brain looks so gorgeous. That's actually my desktop wallpaper.
We were just talking about how engineers and doctors don't talk to each other enough.
Yeah.
But that's changing. Biotech is a great example of it. Okay, we gotta move on to talking about. We spoke about stem cells. We spoke about what did we just speak about?
We spoke about biofeedback. We spoke about neurogenesis.
3D printing organs. That's another one that's coming up. Like 3D printing is getting better and better constantly.
Yeah.
Jose Coaco, Jose, he gifted me that Groot, which is lying behind us.
Is that 3D printed?
Yes.
Oof.
So that's just the beginning of 3D printing, bro.
Amazing. I recently read an article of somebody 3D printing a human ear. And it's an actual human ear.
When you say human ear, you mean with the eardrum, with everything?
No, the external ear.
Okay.
So just this part.
Okay.
But it has actual cartilage in it, which means that after that, if it gets injured, if I get a small cut, it will heal. So we are there.
What's the raw material for that?
Too complicated. Like a lot of biocellulose and yeah.
With some stem cell masala?
I'm sure.
Just like pinch of stem cells.
You have to do this.
How the fuck do you come up with like organ raw material, dude?
Yeah, but that's where we are. I think we are 5-6 years away from 3D printing a liver or a heart.
It's also a hope for the world's non-vegetarians because you'll
Can
be
you
able to
believe
3D
that's
print,
not meat? Yeah,
3D print a nice chicken patties
correct.
without killing chicken.
Yep. Vegans will be very conflicted.
I think they'll be happy.
They'll be happy.
Yeah, dude. Like even since I've gone vegetarian, there's two downsides to going vegetarian. One's loss in like muscle and size. And no matter how many vegetarians bat for the fact that, no strength is the same, it's not.
Okay.
Your explosive strength is less. And the second one is lack of options in food. Like, and there'll be some happy vegetarians out there who'll say, no, you need to try food with me. There's no lack. But there is a lack.
Yeah, they have done that, right? Like they have those beef that is not beef, which apparently tastes exactly the same.
So I had that in Dubai right now. It's called Impossible Burger.
Impossible Burger. Yeah. Correct.
I swear to God, it tastes just like red meat.
Crazy.
You can't tell the difference.
Crazy.
But the case against that from non-vegetarians or the meat lobby, like the animal husbandry lobby all over the world, is that you don't know what they're putting inside, which is also true. Because I believe in the ingredients, they write some code word and they write just like comma stabilizer. That stabilizer could contain a bunch of
whatever
things.
It is, yeah.
So no one really knows what's inside. And these Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat people have not come out and said that, listen, we have these things.
Yeah.
I also believe they successfully made stem cell generated meat. Like they made prawns or something, but it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Like it was very expensive to produce and all that. So, but there is hope for non-vegetarians who don't want to kill for food.
So technology is a rate limiting factor. The possibility is a rate limiting factor. Price is going to come down of everything. It is that first initial leap that is the most difficult. Once you know that it is possible and the market realizes that there is a market for it, price is going to come down. So 3D printing definitely the next big thing. Somebody 3D printed a bridge. I think in China, they built an entire bridge out of 3D printed materials. So
see, this is another technology that doesn't get spoken about in this hype of metaverse and NFTs and all.
Yeah.
That's the kind of technology that's popping in the world right now because it's near social media and it's near fintech. The industries that are already very central to our lives.
Yeah.
You have anything to say about metaverse?
A lot actually, but let's do one more minute on 3D printing.
Sure.
3D printing is a way of decentralizing production.
Too complex a thought.
All right. The way I think about it is, usually what happens, there is a company. The company will produce a shoe, produce a phone, produce whatever it is. There is a distribution chain, logistics. There's a truck, there's a delivery guy, it'll come to your place.
Gotcha.
3D printer at home. In every home, all you have to do is to download the software and you 3D print whatever it is that you want. Is a crazy future to think about.
Yeah.
So there's no big industry, there's no big factory anywhere. सबके घर में अपना अपना जो चाहिए बनाओ.
Your experience of online shopping will change. You select it, it'll be in your hand in a minute.
Right there.
My question always is, what is the raw material here? I don't know. Is it some kind of plastics?
Yeah.
If yes, how does it affect the environment, etc.?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, then we're talking about 3D printing years. Yeah. So will you pull out a baby's umbilical cord and like throw it into the 3D printer?
Hopefully not.
Metaverse.
Yeah, let's go. Virtual reality, where everything is okay.
How do you look at this as a doctor other than the whole eyes will get strained angle? Because I have used a virtual reality device. It's good.
Yeah.
I won't say it's, oh bro, it's not like that level yet. It's good.
I mean, I found it a little hard on the head after you use it for an hour.
Yes.
Especially if it's an intense game.
You mean it causes headaches?
Correct. Quite literally you feel stuffed and you feel a little claustrophobic after some time. Especially if you've worn noise cancelling headphones, you do get lost and then you just want to get out. And plus you're sweating inside. If you're playing a shooter game, holy shit. just looking all around, you're physically moving, you're jumping up and down, and you're trying to shoot people. Can't take it for more than 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So definitely the hardware part has to improve. It has to become a lot more comfortable. But conceptually, inevitable, I feel, that we will move on to virtual reality. We may not move on to it exclusively. It's not like reality will stop and everything will go virtual. Augmented reality has a much more chance of becoming mainstream than virtual reality. But there are some things that virtual reality can do, which is very, very cool. Like having virtual meetings or, having virtual games is going to be a huge thing. Like we already have online FIFA tournaments. Imagine having online FIFA virtual reality tournaments. Would you be able to tell the difference between that and going to Old Trafford live and seeing a football match? That is the level that we are thinking about. So definitely exciting. Very, very, I'm looking forward to that.
There's two last things I want to address on this show. The first is the Genome Project. What was it? What significance does it hold? And the second one we'll get to later.
Okay.
But the second one is very Black Mirror-esque. And that's the highlight part for me.
All right.
But let's talk about this gene mapping, gene hacking. I say it because, again, Michio Kaku said that in the last 100 years, it could be one of the biggest scientific discoveries that mankind has ever made.
Yeah.
And the angle is designer babies. You'll be able to design your babies. You'll be able to say, nahi, iska haath, nahi, not iska haath, but iski height itni honi chahiye, aankhon, he should be so tall, his eyes should be colored this way, his whatever voice should be like this, she should look like that.
Yeah.
That's the angle?
No, so for me, it always starts off with a more let's prevent diseases angle.
Okay.
That is how all health advancements start. Similarly for Neuralink, you would notice, let's treat patients of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, seizures. It's never about let's make people superheroes. That will happen. But you can't sell that. So initially, the whole genome project would be about let us be able to identify problems before they start. Let us identify all the genes that can cause, say, diabetes or Alzheimer's. See if they are there or not when the baby is still in the womb. And if at some point we become advanced enough that we can correct it, wouldn't you? Right? If you know that your baby will have Alzheimer's at the age of 50, and if you can change it now in a safe way, would you? Probably. Because nothing is stopping you from treating that Alzheimer's when it comes. So why not prevent it? Similarly for diabetes. So things that are obviously diseases, you will most likely treat. I think most parents would. And then that opens the door to ethical problems. Now, I want my child to be fair. I want my child to be dark. I want my child to be tall. I want my child to be short. Now, are they problems? No. Are they diseases? No. Can a parent change it? It's a difficult question because we are changing children as soon as they're born anyway. We are giving them a name. We are telling them their gender. We are sending them to the school of our choice to hang out with kids that we think will influence them in a particular way. We are giving them books to influence them to think in a particular way. All of that is influencing. So till what level is it good parenting? And at what level is it unethically changing somebody's genes? So this is a human story that we tell ourselves कि इधर तक ठीक है, इसके आगे we are going against God's will. Till where is God's will? If a child is born, we shouldn't interfere at all then. जो हो रहा है होने दो. So both extremes are bad. And at some point we will come to a consensus that idhar tak it is ethical, beyond this it is not. And the strange thing is that that line will keep changing. As society evolves, we will keep on re-evaluating what is right, what is wrong. So no telling where it will go. But the Human Genome Project is essentially understanding the whole genetic makeup of a human being.
Okay, let's break down the biology a little bit more.
Okay.
Why did it take so long to complete this Human Genome Project? What was the difficulty? And correct me if I'm wrong, but they're basically mapping out what a DNA strand looks like.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you take out one hair of mine or one cell of my skin, it'll be made up of cells.
Yeah.
And those cells will have one part that contains your DNA strand.
Yes.
And a DNA strand is a small physical thing.
Yes.
Very tiny. Smaller than a cell.
Correct. Inside a cell is a nucleus.
Okay.
Inside the nucleus is the DNA.
And it's one strand.
2 strands.
2 strands of DNA.
Right.
One from your mom, one from your dad.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, one of them is altered and then one of them stays the same from the parent.
Right. So there are 23 chromosomes. So we have those chromosomes, and inside each chromosome there are many base pairs. So that is combinations of amino acids. So you need to know the sequence of those amino acids, because in one particular, like for example, if you heard of something called Down syndrome. Down syndrome is when your 21st chromosome, there is a trisomy. So there is an extra copy of that. Now that is a problem. So if that is there, then you have chances of getting Down syndrome. So that is a very simple one to diagnose. So this was known very early on. But if the problem is much more specific and hidden inside one of the base pairs of one of the genes, one of the chromosome, then the diagnosis of that is much more complex, which is why it took so long. And we have still not done yet. The project is still going on. We are still trying to understand where all the diseases are coming from at a genetic level.
Because even this is mathematics. It's a framework for how your body will function when that little cell becomes one full human being. It's kind of a prediction for the future.
Correct.
And based on the different combinations within that DNA strand, I'm sure it'll lead to new possibilities and realities.
Yeah. Also because it's not always 1:1. It's not that ek problem ho gaya to ye problem hoga. Because multiple genes will interact with each other. So you need to have this combination of problems to have this effect.
Okay.
So that increases the complexity.
So it's a very complex problem on a very microscopic scale.
Yeah.
That's why it's taking so long.
Correct.
Okay. And now correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard people say things like, I think they experimented with the part of the DNA sequence which was responsible for AIDS or cancer. I can't remember which one. But when they pulled it out and they made that cell sort of cancer free, or that human being that would form from that cell cancer free or AIDS free, I can't remember which one it was. It also affected muscular growth.
Possible. I don't remember this particular study.
It was something related to muscular growth.
It is definitely possible, because most of the things that can go wrong with the body, it has originally developed so that something can go right. So if you influence the wrong thing, many times the right thing also gets affected.
Maybe in a more positive way.
Yeah.
Or in a negative way. That's what they're trying to figure.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the reason why most of these treatments are difficult. So like for example, if you have a disease called rheumatoid arthritis, for example. So that is where your joints get affected because your immune system is attacking itself. Your immune system attacks our own body. Now, to treat that, you have to give medicines to shut down the immune system, right? Because the immune system was misbehaving. But the immune system developed for a reason, to fight infections. Now that you've shut down the immune system, infections can come in. This give and take is a part of every medical treatment. So that will happen here also.
In this domain, one last question before we move on to the final leg, which is that when you actually want to alter a DNA sequence, there's some technology, I'm assuming. What is that technology? It's like a machine?
The latest one is CRISPR, which is a pretty cool technology. It's literally that you go in and at a molecular level, you can select, it's like cut and paste. So you say that out of this whole sentence of genes, I don't like these 3 words. So let me go in, cut it off, take it out, and put in another 3 words that I liked.
Which is how you can alter the height, the look of the baby.
Yeah, oversimplification, but technically you can. If you have cracked the code to that level, you can change snippets of somebody's genetic sequence and technically change who they are.
What's the engineering of CRISPR? Is it like actually 2 scissors?
No, these are chemical scissors. So there are chemical molecules that you can add to the gene, and then it can go in and do that.
Wow, this is deep biochemistry.
Yeah.
and all. Wow, man.
And the beautiful thing about CRISPR is that you don't need a huge lab to do this. Apparently, the technology has already evolved to a point where you could do it in a small lab. Like every city or every village could have a CRISPR lab.
So this is actually a win of the world of chemistry.
Yeah, a huge one. I think it won the Nobel Prize. I forget which year, but yeah.
That's insane. Okay. And one last
Okay.
round of discussion.
Mhm.
Again, from that Michio Kaku podcast, which I highly recommend you check out that person's work. He's
Yeah.
wahan ka Vijit Chavda. Like, he's a astrophysicist who has knowledge about a lot of subjects.
Yeah.
They asked him that what's the most fascinating technology in recent times that you love? He spoke about this CRISPR and the Genome Project. And they said that after you pass away, very soon after you pass away, what would you be excited about? So he said that in the same way that DNA has started to get mapped completely, they are trying to map the human brain as well. Now the human brain is made up of neurons. What if you can represent each of those neurons using a transistor?
Right.
Okay. I don't know how to explain a transistor in layman's terms because I don't know utna about transistor. I've forgotten. I wasn't a good engineering student, honestly. But think of it in the same way that you would think of a neuron, a cell that can pass electricity from one side to another.
Right.
So say if I have to take Ranveer's brain and represent it and recreate it using transistors that fill up a big cricket stadium. Okay. Now maybe this will take years to create. It'll occupy a lot of space, etc. Maybe it'll be as big as Bandra. All of Bandra will, my brain will like be there in physical form. Now once you have that brain network and you fire electricity from one side and switch it on, the question he raised is, does that become a conscious being? Does that brain give rise to a conscious being? Say now, rather than just the brain occupying Bandra, what if you build a robotic body with that brain inside, with a functioning liver, etc., whatever? Does that become a massive giant you're building?
You wouldn't need a liver. In fact, the interesting thing is that you wouldn't need any of the other organs.
Just a brain and a khali badan.
Just a brain and something for movement.
Okay.
Because essentially that's what you are. You are a brain that can move. Your heart exists to pump blood into the brain, which a robot will not need. Your lungs exist to take in oxygen so that it can oxygenate the blood to give to the brain, which your brain would not need. Liver is to digest food, which you don't need. Kidneys to put out urine, which you don't need. So your whole body, all of your systems will be unnecessary if you have a robotic brain. Right? It's a non-organic brain. It's not a biological brain. So you don't need any of that. It could literally be a brain on wheels for movement.
His further question in this same domain is, see, this is likely going to happen. It's a matter of computers becoming faster.
Okay. The reason that I don't think it'll happen is because it's not just about mapping each individual neuron. It is also about figuring out how each individual neuron is connected to each other, which is extremely difficult.
Okay.
Extremely difficult, because if it's difficult to map 1 billion neurons to 1 billion transistors, imagine how difficult it is to figure out how those 1 billion transistors are connecting to each other over 1 trillion synapses. Look, think of the logistics of that. And it's not even that it's a 1:1 connection. It's that if neuron A is talking to neuron B, for some reason, because neuron A is talking to neuron B, neuron C can't talk to neuron D. So the whole loop has so many negative feedbacks, positive feedbacks, and back channels that it is the communication that makes the difference. Our neurons are actually very, very similar, but the connections are different.
Can I play devil's advocate here?
Sure, go ahead.
Let's talk about the past technologies we've spoken about in this podcast itself. We spoke about the high quality MRI machine that maps out your brain, then that cross section.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure those technologies will also advance.
Yeah.
Apparently, 3D printing will also advance. Boom! You combine the two and you have a deeply connected brain.
I don't think it is impossible. In fact, I think it is inevitable. If you're going to say infinite time, right?
Okay, fair.
If you say 500 years, I would say, yeah, it's it's possible to map out a human brain.
So that's what I think. I also think that our understanding of brains and all is increasing so much. And these other tertiary technologies which are unrelated to the brain but can be applied to, like 3D printing,
Right.
like those powerful scans,
Right.
all that's also going to advance. And I would like to believe that the human race is at the brink of technological revolution.
Yeah.
Maybe
We are in
50
the
years
midst
away?
of one. We are in the midst of one. We don't realize it because it's happening around us. But we are in the midst of a huge technological boom that is only going to get exponentially quicker.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying and exciting.
So the last thing that Michio Kaku brought up about this concept, that if you can take a copy of your own brain and build it in the real world using metal, it's likely that will be a great home for all the data that's already running in your brain.
Interesting.
Because your memories are also a big connection of
Correct.
neurons. All that's already there in that metal. Is there any way to transfer your own electricity there? Is that called transferring consciousness? Is that the Black Mirror episode where they upload their consciousness onto a computer?
So it is technically possible to take a screenshot of who you are and map it onto a brain, into an artificial brain. But every time you experience a new situation, those neurons are changing. Now, can those transistors, can those metallic wires have the capacity to automatically unhook themselves and hook onto another one?
Wow.
Can those transistors have the capacity to divide into new transistors? Because that's what the brain is doing. So even if you map Ranveer today into a robot, 5 minutes later, you guys are going to be different. Because that Ranveer is going to remain Ranveer of today and you will be different in 5 minutes. So evolutionarily, you are still at an advantage.
And this is where I bring in stem cells.
Yes. So when the day we can come up with biological organic computers, we have a chance of replicating our consciousness onto a computer.
And biological organic computers are a combination of all these technologies we just spoke about.
Correct. Because biological organic computers are what we are. So basically, we are trying to replicate ourselves.
And if you think this podcast was fun, you should check out the others, even the Hindi episodes we've done.
So currently, the best way to create a biological organic computer is to have sex.
Which was the topic for our last episode. It's about 1 a.m. Dr. Sid Warrior. 4
Crazy, dude.
episodes again.
Crazy.
How does it feel at the end of this brain sex situation?
Insane, man. Insane. We've talked about too many intellectual things without getting too tired. So I love that. I love the vibe that you've created. You're a great podcaster, man.
Oh, thank you, bro.
I
Thinking
mean,
of switching it off.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'll 3D print my own brain and make that run. We do the international gig. Dr. Sid Warrior, thank you.
Thank you for having me, man.
This was a lot
Pleasure.
of fun. See you.
See you.
That was the episode for today. Especially for international audiences, if you enjoyed this conversation with Sid Warrior, you have to check out the entire series we've done with him. Some incredible topics that we've touched upon. This was only the recent episode from our series with Dr. Sid Warrior. For more episodes of TRS, make sure you follow us on Spotify. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. And if you're a regular listener or watcher of TRS, I'd love to know what other episodes you'd like with the master, Dr. Sid Warrior. Comment below, tell us on our social media. This podcasting journey has only just begun.